Hi everyone, and welcome to Full on a Journey. This is just a message for the moment, whenever you happen to come across this reading. To set the scene for the reading, I'm going to draw a card from Colette Baron Reid's Wisdom of the Oracle deck to see what our anchor message is, and there it is. Number 5, orphaned. So, as you can see, there is a character here. She actually looks like someone in a wedding dress. She has the head of a bird. Obviously, the idea of being orphaned has a very bereft feeling about it. Being orphaned as a child might well leave one with deep wounding around abandonment and not having the stability, the support, being provided for, being watched over, being protected, that comes with having parents. This character is very alone in the world. As adults, it's quite a primal and profound rite of passage when our parents die. There's something about fully coming into your own when you no longer have parents, even as a parent yourself, even as a grandparent. Socially speaking, we might also feel orphaned by our family, our community structures, our governments, our religious authorities, society in general, that we might have relied on to provide all that structure and support and oversight in a parent kind of way. Sometimes we might feel the need to extract ourselves from those very authorities and overseers and makers of the rules of society and of government. We are living in a time where so many of us have had our eyes opened as the masks of good faith granted to governments and other bodies that we have endowed with agency and authority. Many of us are seeing them for what they are, and there is a grief about the realization that more often than not, it seems, these religious, cultural, political, administrative, economic systems and bodies that we have put our trust and faith in to take care of us are in fact doing quite the opposite. They might be exploiting us or trying to control us and abandoning us in terms of our fundamental needs and rights. So let's see where this orphaned card takes us. I'm going to put it there in the sunlight. I'm going to get 2 tarot cards now to open up the story a little bit and give it some context. I'll take 1 card from the Light Seers, and there it is. The 4 of Pentacles in reverse. The camera doesn't pick it up all that well. If you look very closely, these dwellings over here look very much like what we would refer to as a kind of informal settlement. It's very common in many parts of the world now, especially in more underdeveloped countries of the global south, but even in advanced economies like the US, there's a steady creep of this kind of informal housing. If you look very closely at this card, these are sort of shacks that have been made with materials that have been found. They often have a simple corrugated roof, and people tend to live in very densely populated conditions that don't always have the basic services, water, sanitation, and so on. And this character, you see this beautiful balcony over here, it's really got a sense of somebody who is from an upper class, somebody from a wealthy class, who is living far away from the grubby, everyday mundane life, and has some kind of mansion up on the hill. She's adorned with all kinds of beautiful things, but most importantly, being the 4 of Pentacles, is that in her purse or her bag, she has her pentacles, which are, of course, her material wealth, her material foundation, and she's hanging on very tightly. She's also got this air of kind of talk to the hand. Like she really is both in her view of herself and in her material standing superior to all others. Now, this energy is exactly how rich people get rich. I'm sure you're familiar with the idea that wealthy people, for example, celebrities, seldom pay for anything because wherever they go, people just give them free stuff. Also, wealthy people, while they might spend their money on lavish things, they also can be penny pinchers. They can be quite stingy and actually hoard their wealth to themselves. So, bringing the initial ideas that came up about this orphaned card, where this feels like us feeling abandoned and having to let go of the idea that those who have the power, in this case economic power, but also political power, because if you have economic power, you also have political power. We've come to understand that our elections, our governments, even our philanthropies are really all part of the same class of people. And then there's the rest. So to the extent that we have maybe started to realize that these systems that we take so for granted as being how the world is run are in fact not for the good of most of us. And I think a lot of people in the world are feeling a kind of grief and abandonment and the need to reorientate. This is the 1%. Let's get another tarot card. Okay. The Father of Swords and the Daughter of Wands. As a character, the Father of Swords is a most accomplished individual, highly educated, very learned, worldly, well-traveled, incredibly confident in their own worldview and the ability to make very powerful, clear, concise, astute observations and articulate them in very clear and confident and astute ways. In the context of this reading, rather than seeing the Father of Swords as a character, this represents the dominant narrative of our societies. Again, it's not just the wealthy elite, the political elite, that control how we understand the world, what we believe to be true about how things work. For instance, in a narrative sense, the belief that many of us in capitalist and Western societies are brought up with is that if we work very hard, we will accumulate wealth over time. But the reality is that most of us are here in this overcrowded, under-resourced space. This is also intergenerational wealth. This is also how wealth accumulates. The Father of Swords knows this very well, but as a member of the elite, knows exactly how to downplay that aspect. The Father of Swords here also reminds me of the dominant discourse of our universities and our science systems. This is the expert, the people that we see interviewed in the mainstream media explaining to us about how society works and interpreting, for example, interpreting this inequality that we see in our societies, interpreting it, for instance, as an individual problem. It's a problem of laziness, complacency, ignorance, lack of talent, as opposed to understanding that this is systemic. Wealth is accumulated, as I mentioned earlier, in various ways through the exploitation of labor or natural resources, but also through intergenerational wealth, meaning that rather than distributing to everyone, this wealth will go to the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of this woman, who will inherit her property, her wealth, her jewels, her social capital. This is huge social and even academic capital. It's really no wonder that as we start to fully understand this, as we have over the last few years really, but just in the last few months, we really, the unmasking of this small little club of people here, the tech billionaires, the oligarchs, we're starting to learn the truth. So then, who is the daughter of Wands in this scenario? Let's have a look at the card. This beautiful snake in the figure of 8. This is young, passionate, fiery energy. This is a free spirit, a visionary creature, stubborn, strong, adventurous, fierce. In the context of this reading, and looking at it, the daughter of Wands, from a systemic point of view, the first thing that I think about is, as in every generation and every era, it is always the youth who are at the front lines of any kind of uprising or revolution or fight against authority. We need them for that, because by now we are too tired or weighed down by responsibility, or we've given up hope and become very jaded and cynical. But it's the youth of today, as in every generation, that has the most to lose, because they still have their whole futures ahead of them. We need this free spirit, passionate, stubborn energy. But what hope, you might ask, and I ask myself, does a daughter of Wands have against this incredibly deeply entrenched, institutionalized, and in many cases unquestioned system that's been in place for hundreds of years? And especially a daughter of Wands, because a big part of this is the patriarchy. I kind of want to look at those two like that. Let me just line the cards up nicely for you. This is a direct challenge to the patriarchy. So this is a sort of young feminist energy, this daughter of Wands. She's all passion and drive and vision, but without the life experience. And so for me, in the context of this reading, she needs our support. We cannot let our young people be orphaned by us, be abandoned by us, the older generation. How much despair do the youth face today? Because the chances of them being able to acquire property or economic, financial security, go to university, is so much harder and so much more insecure than ever before. We cannot abandon them and let them feel alone in this world. It's the combination of our collective wisdom and knowledge and strength. I mean, put this young, passionate energy together, for instance, with a woman in menopause, and we can take on the world, right? Okay, so one last oracle card, this time from the Dream Weaver's Oracle, just to close out what has been a really topical reading, a very timeless reading. So let's see what the Dream Weavers can add to this story. All right, there it is. All the diamonds in the sky. Can you see that this is a dandelion? Here's the dandelion, and as you know, their seeds are dispersed via wind. One little puff of wind here by a pufferfish is enough to send all the seeds of the dandelion flying for miles to regenerate itself and to become diamonds in the sky, which of course is very reminiscent of the idea of stardust, which is of course where we all come from and where we all go to in the end. So as I am new to this oracle deck, I thought it might be worth just having a look at a bit of the text that comes with the guidebook. So here, let me see if the camera, there we go. So the essential meaning is limitless potential and possibilities unique to you, moving out of limiting beliefs, reaching for the stars and trusting you will reach them. Often the only things that separate us from the life we want to live are our beliefs and the inner stories we tell ourselves about them. Perhaps you've been conditioned to see yourself as limited, less than, unworthy. Maybe you're worried about the consequences of stepping out of your comfort zone right now, for the results of your expansion may not please others. That alone really ties this all together very nicely. I'm going to trust that If you found this reading and you have made it this far along into the reading, no matter when you find this, that something about this resonates with you, that you may well be feeling like you just don't fit in, that you haven't been able to achieve what you have been brought up and led to believe your whole life is your place in the world, who you are, your identity, what governs you, the rules that you are supposed to abide by, and that this inequality, this state of affairs is just the way things are. The Father of Swords deployed through the media, through political discourse, through education even, helps to concretize that. And perhaps you are feeling this daughter of one's energy, this passion rising up to counter this feeling of being inadequate to meet the demands, but also not having the support, however passionate you might be feeling about changing the system, or even just changing your own circumstances and the circumstances of your family. This card comes in to remind us that all of this is an illusion. We all came from stardust, and this is how transient and temporal our existences are. One puff and it's over, and a new cycle has begun. We are transient temporal beings. So the takeaway for me here is for you to, and for us really, because it's a collective experience we're having, is to recognize the transience of life and of circumstance. This is why the elite hold on so tight. It's never enough, and they have so much to lose. But the advantage that we have is that we see the truth now of what we've been told all our lives. And we have this burning energy, and it's infectious, and it is single-minded, and it is full of fire, fire in the belly. Look how different this energy is to this. So this is the antidote to this. We are not orphaned. We are part of the same stuff. There's no difference between us. There are not some people who are more important than others. There are not groups of people who are superior to others. We all came from stardust. We're all going back to stardust. That's the divine truth. That's the knowledge that can help to guide this daughter of one's energy. And we need to show up and support everyone who is taking direct action of whatever kind to fight the system and to remind us that we are all part of a collective and that we do not need to isolate ourselves or feel like we've been abandoned. Namaste.